The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Hi, welcome to my Mind, Body, Spirit show. It's Dr. Rudy Cashman speaking to you today on this beautiful day in Fort Wayne. It wasn't beautiful a few hours ago, though, but the sun is shining, okay. Today is an extremely serious subject, and I hope you would be a little open-minded about this, because the title of it is Harming and Killing Our Children, which we have done in history and we're still doing today. I was a neurosurgeon. I saw a lot of these injuries. I saw parents losing their children because they were battered, and a very serious problem. But I'm going to describe the problem for about 3/4 of the time and be open-minded, because if there's not a problem for you, I'm sure you know somebody where it is. And I have the solution. I have at least partially the solution. But I encourage you to do some reading. I wrote all this together in a book, which you see demonstrated over there, and I'll hold it up for you also, Harming and Killing Our Children. It's very thorough, easy to read. You can read a little bit at a time. It's at the library. You can get it on Amazon. If you can't reach it there, come to me personally, I'll buy you a copy, okay? Thank you very much. I consider this subject to be extremely important. So we're going to follow the outline of this book a little bit, and in the last 15 minutes, I'll review what I call the 20 prescriptions that lead to good life, about 20 things that you can do. This is totally consistent with any religion. I'm not promoting any religion. Even one of the 20 is a positive statement about that, because I think that is very important. So what am I talking about here? What is interesting is when a child is born, this is serious, but it has an opportunity to it. Only 5% of its genetic script, what determines what is going to express in your body through RNA, is written. 5% is called epigenetics. That's something that's frankly scientifically proven just a few years ago. Yes, 5% is expressed, and genetic code of the fetus living within you depends on what the parents' genetic structure of the mother, the father, even going back a generation or two, and then especially the mother and father too, are doing with the child in the uterus. Are they playing music? Are they arguing? Is she consuming alcohol? Is she smoking cigarettes? Is she breathing in the air of her husband doing that? This all affects the genetic structure of the infant. So the infant can be born, for example, if she drinks a lot of alcohol, which is extremely serious to genetic code of the infant. The child can be born demented, disfigured, missing half the brain, missing a jawbone, missing an eye. All can be done by fetal syndrome, by drinking alcohol can do that. Smoking a cigarette can affect it. Taking narcotics can do it. And I'll review these a little bit at a time here. So we are disabling and shortening the lives of our children before they are even born. Yes, yes. But it also is of opportunity. Look at the Mozart effect. The Mozart family was playing music throughout the house, and the mother and the father, and I think the infant was born playing the piano. Yeah, our children's brains, especially the first 4 years, are tremendously affected by what is occurring in the house. Are they fighting? Are they arguing? Are they injuring the child? Half the injuries to children occur before age 1. Some people kill their children. Yes, yes, that's what occurs. I saw it as a neurosurgeon, or they injure them, okay? Were they breastfeeding? And they found now that the best, your brain is about 3 pounds of fat, okay, omega-3 fats. Breast milk is omega-3 fats. Most women, some don't breastfeed at all. The best brain is built by omega-3 fats. So the mother, a lot of them now breastfeed 6 months. But if you, the biggest brain, if you breastfeed 2 years, they don't tell mother that. A lot of mothers do not know that. They think 6 months, hey, that's good. Well, I consider it to be good. But if you did it for 3 years, your child will have a bigger brain. Mm-hmm. Size of the brain is bigger, and mothers who breastfeed their infant with breast milk, which is the best milk, the breast enzymes, the best vitamins, the breast proteins come out of a woman who does that. And children born of mothers who don't breastfeed at all are at a disadvantage. They're at a disadvantage. So, and what's interesting is I myself at home take care of a lot of animals. I myself couldn't kill a mouse, okay? So I get bird feeders in corn out there, and I have every kind of animal you can dream up that's there at 5 to 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm watching them. They take wonderful care of their children. I've never seen an animal. They include deer and woodchucks and mice and birds and every kind of animal, geese and ducks. I have seen nothing but the expression of love from the animals. Yes, yes. So why we humans do that? Well, this is what the show is all about, to try to prevent that, okay? And so our children have increased rates of disability, type 1, type 2 diabetes. For example, type 1 diabetes is caused by what we're feeding the child, whether we're eating gluten or not, so parents need to get gluten tests, whether feed them milk. Yeah, just think about a minute. The government industry promotes, you gotta have your milk. Well, I had it as a teenager, 10 years old, lived in Germany and in New York City. My dad had a deli. I had acne all over my face. I didn't know it was due to milk. I stopped milk drinking and it went all away. I had acne on my lips. Okay, why is milk from cows not necessarily a healthy thing? It's because humans do not have the enzyme to digest the milk. Yes, the lactose, the sugar in milk. Asians don't have it at all, so their gut gets very upset. They don't drink milk at all. The black population, maybe 75%, don't have it. The white population, maybe 5%. And after 4 years of age, the enzyme to digest it kind of goes away. So if I drink some milk, like the other day, I took some in through cheese, for example, and I had diarrhea for a day or two. And then I realized, Rudy, you did not have the enzyme to digest it. And the protein, the casein in milk, is actually Colin Campbell discovered it can be carcinogenic. It can cause cancer, liver cancer, renal cancer. He has studied that in detail. And when you think of a cow, it's put in a cage, and then we give it antibiotics so it won't die from bacteria. And then we feed it genetically modified food. We give hormones, pesticides, herbicides. Every milk of every living thing is different. A veterinarian, for example, would never give the milk of one animal to another. You know why? It would die. We humans drink cow's milk, we don't die. Rarely, I mean, occasionally there's an allergic reaction, but rarely would there be a death. There would be some diseases. And the reason is that the proteins, the fats, the sugars are totally different in every milk. That's why you don't give the protein, the milk of one animal to another, because they would have an allergic reaction and die from it. Every veterinarian knows that. So people who drink milk have higher rates of diabetes, they have higher rates of allergy, asthma, ear infections. Many childhood diseases are caused by milk. And it's been confusing to the public because the pediatricians and family doctors don't point this out. Some do, but majority of them say you gotta be drinking your milk every day. And they're not looking at the science. The science is in my book. If you want to learn a lot more about it, let me recommend this book. I read this, and if you give your child milk, I'll be surprised. Whitewash by Joe Keon, okay? Whitewash by Joe Keon, a wonderful book. Whitewash, Joe Keon, I've read it 3 or 4 times, full of references, okay? And highly, if you're giving milk to your child, please read this book. You can get the library or buy it on Amazon. And after reading that, if you consume milk from cows, maybe you're not reading correctly. Okay. I'm just giving you my opinion. But I really, matter of fact, I've never met a doctor who ever read that book. It's a fantastic book. And milk can make holes in your gut called colitis and ulcerative colitis, all sorts of things. You don't, and they say, oh, you need the calcium. There's industry trying to make money, and you can get calcium from plants. You don't need it from milk. So we're addicting our children to sugar. We give them sugary products, and what happens right away, we have in us, this is important for you to know, we have in us a circuitry that makes us feel good. We have dopamine, which is a quick fix. You have some sugar, your sugar fix, and I'm in heaven. I have a donut, man, I feel great. I don't eat them anymore, okay? Some ice cream will do it. And then we have serotonin, which makes us feel good for a few hours, for example. But this circuitry has been hijacked in many children because we're letting them drink too many sugary products, and it causes secretion of serotonin and dopamine, and they feel great all day, but it causes tremendous rates of obesity, diabetes, cancer. Breast cancer, for example, is highly related to being overweight. Hormonal changes, it'll cause girls to menstruate much earlier and stop a lot later, and their estrogen level is up and breast cancer rates go up. So what you give your child is extremely, extremely important. So I did want you to know about the dopamine and the serotonin. So we're harming and killing your children with cow's milk. Remember, I already told you quite a bit about it, but I want you to know some more about it. You were constantly told your child needs calcium. isn't it strange that the calcium content of cow's milk is at least 3 times higher than a human mother's calcium content? So, and they have found too, which is sort of interesting, to make sure that an infant would continue to breastfeed, for example, which is extremely important. Nature, evolution, God, whatever, put some chemicals in there that are like morphine, morphones, yes. So when you see the infant kind of falling asleep, it's the morphine in milk. That's great. I saw a doctor from Sweden describe that at a medical conference. I mean, that's very important. But it is also in cow's milk, of course, at a much higher concentration. So you just keep on drinking more. And so that a lot of diseases associated with milk consumption, okay? Americans consume about $40 billion worth of cheese, too, made from milk, okay? And milk has some of the morphone in it, so cheese can be addicted. There are people that are addicted to cheese. It's about 80% fat. I didn't say no cheese at all. I mean, some cottage cheese, things like that are fairly healthy, but to consume a great deal of cheese, you're going to gain a lot of weight, a lot of calories, going to get the reactions just like you did from milk. And so we consume about 60 pounds of cheese per person per year in this country. And these, like cheese and milk, are full of allergens. There's about 37 allergens in milk. Yeah. Things you could be allergic to. You could get a skin rash or a GI upset or asthma, ear infections. Ear infections are commonly associated with milk consumption. Yeah. Family doctors, pediatricians don't point that out, and they're often treating you with all kind of medications, including steroids. And we already spoke about the sugar in milk, the lactose, that we don't have the enzyme that manufactures. A lot of people get GI upsets like I do because the enzyme that breaks it down is not present even in white people, usually after age 4. Asians don't have it at all, okay? And blacks, maybe 25% don't have it, so they're going to develop some diseases associated with the proteins of milk. And this has been studied all around the world. So there's a great hormonal link with milk. And so there are bioactive hormones in milk. A glass of milk contains a variety of hormones, maybe as high as 59, it says, and this includes pituitary hormones, hypothalamic hormones, 7 steroid hormones, 6 thyroid hormones, 11 different growth factors. Can you imagine? So when you give your child milk, and these hormones will do something to their body. It'll stimulate something. That's what hormones are for, to stimulate different organs, things that you wouldn't want to happen. But industry promotes it. They're making big money. They spend $200 million advertising that drinking milk will cause you to lose weight. Total fraud. They did it, and they will. You even see them, but in general, people are drinking less milk. They're now going to the milk of plants, which can be quite healthy. Okay, but they still advertise regular milk consumption. Let's switch to another subject now. I think we've discussed that enough. This chapter is Our Children Are Going to Pot, okay? We have about 25 million people who are addicted to a substance like opioids or marijuana, okay? For about 20 million of them, it's marijuana. So when we say that 80% of the people are addicted to opioids started with a doctor's prescription. 80% of them who are opioid addicts started with a doctor's prescription. Actually, it was marijuana the majority of the time. I've studied this in great detail. And this medical marijuana that you read about now, you can go to any pharmacy, any place, and pick this up and for a little pain here. And I've studied that in great detail. I even wrote a book called CBD oil, which is made from a marijuana tree. And you can't predict what's actually in it. It is not, does not have strict labeling because it's a plant. It might say the hormone in there that stimulates your brain the most, THC, it might say 10%, when reality is 30%. So people who use this for the little pain seen there, many of them actually can become addicted to marijuana in the end because of incorrect labeling. I studied that in great detail. We're surrounded by states where marijuana is being legalized, so I say watch out because one addiction goes to another. 20% of teenagers are smoking marijuana, some all the time, some intermittently, and the interesting thing is it can affect the brain of it. Our brain is not fully developed in a child until age 25 or so. That the kids that smoke marijuana regularly can find, if you can take a smart kid and make him average, an average kid should make him slow, an intelligent child to an average child. That has been proven scientifically. A former attorney, a former Surgeon General of the United States named Bennett, he wrote about it a lot. He even has a book out on it. I reviewed it, read it a number of times. So watch out for marijuana. Also, it impairs our brain a bit, some cognitive impairment, and it increases our appetite, affects the pituitary, increases our appetite. And you heard the word pot belly. Well, that's related to marijuana. A lot of people who smoke marijuana regularly get a pot belly. And if you get a pot belly, you get diabetes. You're going to die 20 years younger, and maybe even before. Okay, so find, and if you smoke marijuana, you're a parent, what do you think your kid's going to do? Okay, he's going to grab some of them. Why? Because it makes you feel good. It hits the dopamine, the serotonin centers, and sure, it'll make you feel good, but there's tremendous risk associated with it, including lack of brain development, especially in children. Industry doesn't tell you about that, but I'm telling you about it. So don't take that lightly, just don't do it. And they affect, if you were to smoke at home, for example, that's get in a car, you have some cognitive impairment, you're more optimistic, somebody coming around a curve, you don't care, bang, an accident and you're dead. It happens all the time, okay? So it can affect an adult brain also, but the addiction rate is much higher in children. The William J. Bennett was a drug czar under President George Bush, under Ronald Reagan. He was in charge of education. He wrote these books. The name of his book is Going to Pot. So I recommend you read it if you need some more information. And that actually, marijuana, there's about 700 chemicals. We say it's not as addictive as cigarettes. Baloney, they'll talk about e-cigarettes. Oh, well, I tell you, what industry has done, they've added sugar to them. It comes in different flavors. Why did they add sugar to them? Because sugar is addictive. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine. We'll talk more about this shortly. But it's more addictive than cocaine. Yes, I debated that once on this show here. And I think the lady that thought it was marijuana, I think she won the debate. And I really looked into this. And to read William Bennett's book. Now they've added, in these e-cigarettes, they wanted to legalize them, industry, of course. In Europe, they did not. But in this country, there are still kids smoking e-cigarettes. Oh, it doesn't have all the chemicals of cigarettes. Baloney. Because they don't use filters. They have a lot of tar products in there that these kids who are smoking these e-cigarettes, you see the stuff puffing out of the car. We've seen this driving down the road. Adults do it. They're going to get lung cancer, maybe even at a higher rate. It's now in 1920, when they could not addict more people to nicotine from cigarettes, you know what they did? They added sugar to it. It's in Gary Taub's book. Read it. He has a whole chapter on it. They added sugar to it. That makes the lungs acidic, the smoke. The alveoli open up, and now the chemicals can get into the lungs a lot easier and addict them to cigarettes, and they doubled the addiction to nicotine, 1910, 1920. Gary Taubes, there's sugar in cigarettes, but now they put it in e-cigarettes to make sure that they addict the children. So they also found that marijuana increases rates of paranoia, psychosis, mental diseases, and if you use it long term, it has a 90% addiction rate. Okay, and it occurs at a rate about 70% who started use in adolescence, and in 20 to 50% in daily users. Addiction rates go up. And you want an unhealthy life? Well, then smoke cigarettes and marijuana, and especially if your children do it. Okay, and of course, I don't think you would want that. I mean, at age 75, I'm 39 for the 46th time. Okay, I don't smoke. Fortunately, years ago, I smoked one day in high school, and my roommate and I coughed the whole night through. We said, that's it, that's the decision I made. It's not because I'm an unusual person, but boy, thank God for that. Okay, and all I can say, and I'm not a special person, I just decided not to do it, and they didn't know everything about cigarettes that we know now, but I feel so fortunate. I'm on no pills, and 85 years old, play Pokeball every day and take tap dance lessons. Okay, just to let you know that I practice what I preach. Okay, and the states that have legalized marijuana, they did it to get tax money, and they found out they're putting a lot more people in the hospitals, and they're actually losing money. A lot more accidents, a lot more sick people, a lot of people with diabetes from the pot belly, a lot more broken, a lot more crime actually, because there's people aren't thinking straight and commit robberies and murders when they would not have. So I think we've said enough here about marijuana. So I kind of switched to fast food. Fast food. That means you eat it fast, you get it fast, and you gather it into your fat cells fast. Okay, that's why it's fast food. It's processed food. We took the bran and the coverings off the food, so you don't have any fiber, and you're eating essentially nothing but sugar, and sugar raises the insulin level, and insulin opens up the fat cells and puts a fat in there, and you get bigger. And because these restaurants are all over the world now, and you notice that the obesity epidemic is spreading across the world, followed with the diabetic epidemic, and its 30 diseases associated with diabetes are India and China. It's unbelievable number that they have, but just look around. Anybody that's overweight is diabetic, 99%. 20% of the thin people are also diabetics. So you get it because they have fat in their liver, fat in their organs. You got to get blood tests. You got to get glucose tolerance tests, insulin tolerance tests, and you'll know if you are or not. If just glucose tolerance doesn't do it, insulin tolerance test, that is elevated 20 years before full-blown diabetes. So take advantage of that. So, but we don't cook like we used to. You know, some people do. So I suggest strongly that you teach your child to cook. If you start at a very early age, it'll be nothing, and teach them how to cook good food. Okay? Let me tell you something about that. Fat actually is good. Learn what good fats are. what good fats are. Sugar is not the answer. Good fats, okay? Guacamole, nuts, for example. Learn about what good fats are and teach your child to cook that way, and they'll be healthy. Very important. And they're less likely to be mentally impaired from dementia, which is related to diabetes and heart attacks and strokes, amputations, dislocations, cataracts, dental disease, all related to eating the wrong food. What we're eating is fake foods, okay? Deli sandwiches, frozen pizzas, bag of chips, all available everywhere. So, and to make them more edible for you, they add toxins and colors. They know what the sugar bliss is. They have figured out, industry has figured out what makes you seek it. For example, we don't have trans fats in French fries anymore, but trans fats or hydrogenated foods that were put on French fries. And people ate them, and that really made people sick much earlier. We don't use trans fats anymore, but still, fats are bad. 50 years they told us fats are bad, when fats are actually good, and they substituted sugar, and then they figure out what the sugar bliss was. A child can eat a lot higher amount of sugar than an adult, much higher than an adult. An adult might say, I can't eat that. Well, a child might eat that and become addicted to it. Sugar is addictive because it puts out the dopamine, the quick fix, okay? If I go home tonight and I don't allow it in my house, but there's a donut laying there, I might just eat it because nature designed in me the dopamine and serotonin receptors to feel good. I should be getting it from playing pickleball, tennis, or tap dancing. But if there's a donut laying tonight, I'll be eating it because, maybe it's just a little bit of stress. But what I'm saying is nature designed it that way that even people who have generally good habits like myself can still be tempted by sugar. Nature designed it that way so that we would seek, a few hundred years ago, 50,000 years ago, that there was some sugar in foods, but very little. And evolution wanted to keep us alive, so we would eat these things to stay alive, but it was very little sugar. Even 200 years ago, what did most people eat? A pound of sugar a year. What are we eating now? 200 pounds. Some eat more than that. They just keep on eating. Have you sat next to people in a plane or a movie and you just kept on eating and eating? Can't stop because the circuitry of dopamine and serotonin doesn't stop them. I don't blame them. I'm not looking badly at them. It's the way the brain is designed. So you got to eat good food, and the toxins that are added to food are the things to get the bliss point, to make it very colorful. But these are all things you have trouble eliminating, and you will just keep on eating. You cannot stop. So those thickeners and artificial colors, artificial flavors, preservatives, pesticides, anti-foaming agents, emulsifiers, stabilizers, thickness. This is all, when you eat fast food, that's what you're eating. That's part of the food. So they give them texture and consistency. And so these foods behave like a drug. It damages the whole body. We are causing our children to commit suicide on the installment plan, making a payment every day by giving them fast food instead of teaching them how to cook the proper way of good fats, limited good amount of protein, and we need to give them the vitamins, the minerals, the phytochemicals at the top of this food pyramid because that runs the machinery of our body, okay? So fat on the body is not just a cosmetic issue, it's better than a blood test. Not every time. There are a few people who are overweight and they're perfectly healthy metabolically. Okay, all the tests are normal, but that's not common. That is not common. So a person who eats fried foods, fast food, processed food, has at least 10 times the heart attack risk of someone else who's eating reasonably healthy food. Yeah, so it's kind of a big issue. And we're addicting the people to them, okay, because of the brain circuitry. And sometimes to eat less sugar, you have to literally detox from pizza, from donuts, from the way your parents are feeding you. So as a parent, you must pay attention as to what good food is. You look at my website and other books I've written, Amazon, they describe that in detail. But today's processed food are frankenfoods. It's killing us, especially our children. And when someone abuses a substance, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or addictive food, the brain reduces the number of dopamine receptors. The neurotransmitters act on receptors, but we have less. So we got to eat more to get that same feeling. So it's like being on cocaine or heroin. You got to eat more of the sugary product. You got to eat not one donut, you got to eat 6, because your receptors kind of dried up. They died after a while from overuse. Some people will drive always holding a drink in their hand, and you look at it, it's got sugar. Water, lemon, and lime, that's your drink, not sugary drinks. Sugary drinks are 50% of being overweight. Let me tell you a bit about a fructose corn syrup, how bad it gets. Japanese discovered an enzyme, and they can apply it to corn and produce a product that's about 45% sugar and 50% high fructose corn syrup. But they are metabolized differently, and it's degraded differently. Insulin doesn't respond to high fructose corn syrup, so it's an heavy fast food product. For one thing, it keeps it from becoming stiff. It keeps it from becoming rotten. So you can give food with high fructose corn syrup, put it on the shelf, and eat that for a while because it's metabolized differently. And high fructose corn syrup gives you a fatty liver, for example, and interferes with the metabolism of your liver. So there's some high fructose corn syrup, the ultimate frankenfood, okay, is added in amounts to essentially all processed foods to keep it from rotting, and it's sweeter than regular sugar. Not a lot by some, and it's cheaper. Why is it cheaper? Because the government supports the price of growing corn. Yes, your farmer receives money for the government for growing corn, which is 80% of it goes to high fructose corn syrup. We're eating it, we're getting sick, the politicians are happy, the farmer is happy, the salesman is happy, and we're getting sick and dying at a young age. Probably 80 to 90% of the people in this nation have diabetes. Most have been tested incorrectly, have not had serum insulin. The doctor says, your blood sugar is normal, you weigh 220, you don't have diabetes. It's a lie. Get a serum insulin, and that's normal. Okay, I might say you're probably not diabetic. So if you add fructose corn syrup, it's sweeter. It's a bit sweeter. And of course, the food industry uses it because it costs less, profits are bigger, and it's more addictive because it's a lot sweeter. Read labels. It should be on there. So the explosion and occurrence of obesity and type 2 diabetes in the past 50 years is probably caused by the high excess of sugar and high fructose corn syrup that are in the food and in the drinks. You got it? You got it? Okay, so sugary drinks. And then these companies invented drugs, like insulin, invented by Eli Lilly sells a lot of it. But what does that do? Take the sugar and stuffs it into the cells. Your blood sugar goes down, but your cells still have the sugar. Yeah. I've seen it in the literature now. Actually, that can make things worse. That can actually make things worse because the enzymes in the liver that make sugar are turned off by insulin. Your cells are stuffed full of sugar. And your disease, and you notice type 2 diabetics, they're actually overweight because the insulin pushes sugar in the cells. And Tom Jelinek wrote a book on that. Read it. Pins and Needles is the name of it. Very good book, describes that more detail. Or look at my diabetic show, Monday night, 6:30. So you need that more in detail. So diabetes is not a separate disease. It causes other diseases: dementia, Alzheimer's, dental disease, blindness, retinal disease, teeth falling out, heart attacks, strokes, amputations, dislocations, skin disease. I could go on and on. And 80% of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, from diabetes. Preventable. Did you hear the Alzheimer's Association ever mention that? No. 80% of renal disease due to diabetes. Do you ever see the dialysis transplant people ever mention that to you, that you could avoid renal disease most of the time? Diabetes causes these diseases by eating the right food, not eating mostly sugary products, not frying our brain with sugary products, causing dementia is a very critical thing. And children who drink a lot of soda pop can become diabetic at a young age, as teenagers. They'll have heart attacks and strokes in their 30s and in their 40s. So we already mentioned the fruit juice delusion because the tremendous amount of sugar in fruit juices. Eat the fruit, which has the fiber, and the fiber is not broken up, and the sugar level doesn't spike up. So have the smoothie, but not the juicy. Okay? And here's the next one I want to mention. Damaging our children's brains with sports and child abuse. Sports. Yes, sports. Head injuries, football injuries, repeated injuries to the brain. Just a concussion, you may be knocked out within a few hours, everything's fine, scans are negative. But when you add concussions up, they can affect your life. So you have to pay attention. You have to learn a little bit about risky behavior. Skiing down a mountain, is that risky? Well, I think it is. You may not think it is, but I've seen people have serious trouble from that, be paralyzed or lose their life. Or child abuse is a big one when it comes to head injuries. And if you go back in history a few hundred years, frankly, I have it in this book for you to read, but I'm hesitant to repeat it on television. What we have done to children with head injuries, and it changes the normal action of the neurons, okay? And in a home, it can be a boyfriend, it can be a mother or father or brother or sister. People who are drinking a lot, for example, can hit more likely to injure a child. It can result in a death. Very severe injuries occur age 1 or less. And as you go back a few hundred years, it wasn't well described. It wasn't well known. And children were abused. Children were put in slavery. They were made indentured servants. Our Indians threw them in the water, and if they floated, they say, okay, you can live. I mean, the children were abused in history beyond description. You really would have trouble reading this. Concussions are the leading cause of brain injury. It's estimated that 20% of teenage athletes receive a concussion every year. Can you imagine a soccer ball hitting the head all the time? I have even seen it from a golf ball. As a neurosurgeon, I saw one deaf from a golf ball. That's not likely. Don't quit playing golf because of it, but keep in mind, you get the thing flying through the air, and there's certain, so, you know, it can happen. I mean, there's some risk to every sport you play. You know, I can take a fall playing tennis or pickleball, no doubt about it. But my mother allowed me to play football, weighing 130 pounds. I went to a small school. Socially, they pressured me to play, and she signed the form. She never should have done that. Fortunately, my buddy and I, you know, we were going to a religious school, so we were driving down the street, and we both of us whistled at a couple of girls walking by, and the ministers kicked us off the football team. The luckiest day of my life. I pretended like, oh my God, they did some awful to me, so I could socially be more accepted at the school. It was a boarding school, but a lucky day. The guys flying around the end and then hitting me, there's no way that I should have been out on a football field. So look it over, you know, before you decide what sport you're going to play. I have found wrestling, you think it's pretty risky, but I've not seen major head injuries from wrestling. And every wrestler I've ever met is a very disciplined person. So, but again, there can be differences. Sports. Rotational injuries, incidentally, can cause major head injuries. I saw one girl one time, nothing hit her head, and she was unconscious. And I found out she'd been skiing and turning like this, and the brain, which is nothing but fat, and the skull, with calcium, they were rotating at different speeds, and she tore some vessels, had some bleeding. Major injury. She made a good recovery, but you wonder down the line, it's going to show something. I don't know. But rotational sports can result, you know, in injuries. So keep in mind, I myself am risk averse. Not to the extent that I couldn't play some sports, but I get that feeling like skiing, I couldn't do it. But other people feel no risk. So you have a child, or are you a parent that doesn't understand risk at all? I know a neighbor family where everybody's skiing, but I noticed grandpa, who I had breakfast with the other day, quit skiing because he was skiing and lost his memory for a time, and he didn't remember going up in the mountain. I still don't know for certain whether that was a stroke or he hit his head, he didn't know it. So again, this is a tough business. Okay, let's take a minute and talk about neonatal abstinence syndrome. Is a condition experienced by a newborn resulting from exposure to opioids in utero. In other words, the mother is taking narcotics, and they go across the placenta, affect the infant. The infant is born underweight, overweight, has seizures, retarded, can be born dead. But if it's alive, the infant will have to detox, just like a drug addict. You want to do that to your baby? Give me a break. I saw it all the time. So please don't get pregnant if you're on narcotics. Maybe get off the narcotics first. I realize that's complex, that is tough, and there are reasons why people take them, so I'm not being critical there. I just say that poor infant has to stay in the hospital an extra 2 to 3 weeks. A few can go home anyway. It doesn't show up that much. But it can be seizures, it can be bowel trouble, it can be diarrhea, can be doesn't want to eat, can be all sorts of things. Extra cost, about $70,000. Mm-hmm. But again, a lot of those people are on Medicaid, so they don't care. But many of them have brain impairment, which can last for a lifetime. They can have cognitive issues, seizures, lowered IQ, even paralysis for a lifetime. They can, let me take a minute to a very important one now. to FASD. This alcohol syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome, it's divided into 5 different things. It's the most common infant disease, frankly, there is. Fetal alcohol syndrome, partial fetal alcohol syndrome, alcohol-related neurodevelopment disorder. They get it 5 different things they've divided, but these children can affect their genetic structure. They can be born without an eye, with half a brain, with a jaw missing. All sorts of genetic expression diseases. They can be retarded, cognitive impairment. They also have to detox for a few days when they are born. So symptoms of it include inconsistent memory, recall, inconsistent cognitive auditory processing, mental illness, low self-esteem, difficulties controlling impulses. Every neurologic symptoms you could dream of could be caused by the mother consuming alcohol. Many times their disability is not recognized till all of a sudden they go into school and they can't read or find out, oh, they can't see right. All sorts of neurologic impairment. Incidentally, as an adult, I saw many times as a neurosurgeon where people were 25 or a third of the brain was missing when we operated on them. The brain, alcohol is a toxin to neurocells, and the brain surely shrunk. I saw that many times. And then as the clot is removed, it doesn't fully expand. I could write a book on that, how many times that I saw that. So effects of alcohol on the brain is tremendous. They used to say, well, you know, a glass of wine a day or 2 or 3 drinks a week is fine, but they found lately any amount of alcohol can cause permanent effects, of course, increased accidents, increased battering of the mother and father and children because the people have been drinking. So that is a critical one. So alcohol has the ability to increase dopamine. You feel good for a little while. A neurotransmitter that creates a feeling of pleasure, but then it quickly goes down. And you got to have another drink to feel good again. It's like a cigarette. Nicotine does it a lot quicker, though. Nicotine level goes down, got to light up again. Same with alcohol, and you can't control your behavior. You might abuse the family. It might be an accident. So fetal alcohol syndrome can be a very difficult thing. And like I said, it's broken up into 4 or 5 different categories. We also have SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. They have found now that if you put an infant asleep face down, it's a low percentage. Some kids die doing that. So for the first year or 2, first 12 months of life, they sleep face up. And wouldn't that be the worst thing in the world? You lost your child because you had him sleep the other way. So you talk to your doctor, pediatrician, that you properly learn how to take care of the infant. So education is important. That's the reason I want you to read this book. Did I know everything about how to raise an infant, how to avoid problems? No, I did not. And there was no such book as this available. So I encourage you to go on Amazon and read this over. And at the end, I'd like to mention to you too, I couldn't totally get through it, that I wrote a book called The Call of Life, Prescriptions for Leading the Good Life. If you go on Wells Street in Fort Wayne, there's a statue there, and this is the statue you see in back in front of the Criminal Justice Building. I couldn't put it in front of the courthouse. I wanted to, but they wouldn't let me. On which I've written the 20 prescriptions to lead a good life. A good thing to remember. Remember, I respect all religions, but I have some people who follow that, like Unity Performing Arts Choir. They got it memorized. Let me give you an example. Treat others as you like to be treated. Be honest, truthful, do not steal. Make your word your bond. Treat life with care. Avoid risky behavior. Practice showing respect for authority. Parents, teachers, police. Don't let physical and mental abuse go unnoticed. An important one. If you see anybody abuse a child, tell somebody. Matter of fact, it's illegal not to do that because the next thing the child may be dead. I have seen it. Read a book regularly. Be tolerant of other beliefs. Remember, I respect all religions. Teach your child religion important. Help those who are suffering in need. Don't abuse your body. Avoid tobacco, alcohol, drugs. Expect to make your own way in life. That's a big one. In this book, I have 3/4 of the book is devoted to that with stories and examples. I encourage you to read those. I don't have time to cover those here today totally, but very interesting. And practice charity, be willing to forgive yourself and others. Might be something we should consider to avoid wars. Respect the environment. I think that's a big one, you know. I show it respect. I couldn't kill an animal, okay? I go out and I look at it. I look at the leaves. I look at the trees. I look at the stars. I sing to the birds. I feed the animals. It makes me feel good. And you know what's happened lately? They're singing back. The birds are singing back. So it makes me feel good. It makes them feel good. It's more likely for me to respect myself and the environment around us. So, in summary, I'd like you to read this book, which I showed you there, and then there, because I didn't know everything that could harm a child, for example, that I would be doing. This is a lot of education here, I think. I was reading this book to prepare for this lecture today in a coffee shop, and the waitress wanted to take the book from me, and I had to compliment her. So I said, take a picture, and you can get the library on Amazon, because she has children, and you know, we all grown up and know. So I'm going to give a copy of this to every grandchild that I have and my children to use to teach, you know, the families. And then the code of behavior, I think, is a good one. And it's totally consistent with any church you might be going to. One of those 20 prescriptions actually is to respect all religions. I think that's might be important, that we respect them instead of fighting with each other as we appear to be doing again. That will never stop. Let's show some respect and love. My way of looking at it, shooting at them probably not going to solve anything. They'll just shoot back again, and read the book, The Whitewash by Joe Keon. Don't just follow my opinion, but read that. Once you read that, I think you will realize that another animal's milk is not something we should be giving our children, because the proteins, the sugars, carbohydrates, the fats are different, and our body reacts to that, and allergies and diseases. But I personally think every human being could live to be 100. But you've got to respect the environment. You got to respect the human body. You got to respect your child, and you'll get the job done. If you need more information, look me up. Give me a hug. Say, Rudy, I'd like to learn a little bit more. Watch my YouTube shows or read my books. Why do I do this? I love you. I care about you, especially your children. See you next time. God bless. God bless you. Thank you.